Thank you. All right, so we're going to start out with a little icebreaker, and Miss April Brown from the Lakes region is going to help us out with that.
Okay, so in your chat box, we're just going to ask you to, if you were to go on a beach, or would you want to go on a beach vacation or a mountain vacation, and which one would you want to visit, beach or mountain, you know, which specific beach or specific mountain would you want to visit and why? So in the chat, just take a second and answer those questions.
No, I see Destin on there. That's a good one. One mountain vacation. Beach, beach, beach. Smoky Mountains. I'm definitely going to say I think the beach wins.
There's several mountains though. I'm seeing a lot of
Hawaii.
Hey, I'm right there with you.
Those of you who don't know, April is getting ready to head to Hawaii. Hopefully, was it next month?
In October.
Yeah.
But not Maui. So sorry, I'm not going to go to that Maui.
Is that why you came up with this icebreaker?
I don't know. I just was like thinking, well, we were thinking like summertime-y stuff. And I was like, well, everybody usually takes vacations in the summer. So it's except me, I'm going in the fall, but it's always summer in Hawaii though, y'all. Okay, good. I think that's most of us that have answered.
All right. Thank you for participating in that. Okay, let's see here. All right, so as we know, training back in 2019, which was what we called the old normal. And then what happened? 2020 hits. So training was mostly face-to-face until a little virus known as COVID-19 invaded the world in 2020 and helped to transform training into something very new into 2021. Hope everybody enjoys our little COVID virus there. I'm sure we've seen that picture multiple times, but we couldn't resist. So I just want to take a little bit of a look at the way that training has changed before and after COVID. So if you take a look at this chart, as you can see, face-to-face trainings made up 57.3% of sessions in 2019, and that dropped dramatically in 2020 to only 11.4%. Of course, when you can't have face-to-face trainings, that kind of, makes sense. And then it dropped even further to only 6.1% 6 months into 2021. Independent studies were at a low with 6.4% in 2019 and then increased to 7.5% for 2020. While statistics show that they dropped a little in 2021, and this is probably due to the web-based and live online events increasing. Web-based on-demand learning was at 36.1% in 2019, increased to 64.9% in 2020, and is now increasing for 2021 at 75.4%. Webinar live on events, and I find this very fascinating, were not even a thing in 2019. We didn't really do that. And those increased to 16.2% for 2020 and is at 11.6% with 6 months for the 2021 year. Now, this is probably going to become the second highest way to get trainings by the end of the year 2021 if we keep moving in the direction that we are. But here's a little tidbit of information. So even though most of our, we had a lot of online web-based trainings pre-COVID, there were still more participants who received their training face-to-face. Does that make sense? We had lots of options for online, but most people still took them face-to-face. So just a little tidbit of information to kind of show you where we were and where we're headed. So this is taken from the 2019 workforce study. And one of the ways that training has been transformed has been access to the online training. Not only have people had to figure out how to get internet access for NTI learning for their own children, but also for themselves to be able to attend meetings, trainings, et cetera, due to working remotely and just keeping in touch with each other. So this chart just kind of shows the percentage of how many people are now having to do trainings, meetings, Zoom, those kind of things on their phones at the center through a tablet or mobile device. So we just thought this was kind of interesting information. So does anybody have any questions or comments or something that they've seen that might be a little bit different from this or the same? See lots of people looking and reading. Okay. So let's start out with some lessons that have been learned. We're actually going to use Annotate for this. And for those of you who have not used Annotate, I believe at the top of your screen, you'll see something that says that you're looking at my screen. And right beside that, there should be some dots. If you click on that and go down, it should say Annotate. Once you click on Annotate, all of these wonderful tools come up and you can pick the one that you want. And probably text would be okay this time. And if you will write on our PowerPoint right here, some lessons that you have learned from 2020 and COVID in training. Got to be something that we learned. I think some people are trying it out here too, see if it's working. Anyone can do virtual learning. Zoom fits into providers' lives easier after a long day of working. Zoom bouncers are a thing. Zoom settings and ways to change it up. Oh, now we're getting them. Internet connectivity is not the same for all. Web-based trainings can be very convenient. Absolutely. We actually have a couple of Zoom bouncers on our call today, but I'm not going to tell you who they are. So, yes. Wait just a second, see if anybody else has anything to say. And yes, anyone can do virtual training, virtual learning. I think that that's the thing that everybody has figured out is that virtual learning is something that you can do anywhere and anybody can do it. We have be flexible, provide eye breaks and have fun. Yes. Android and Apple products are different for the same program. Yes. Virtual learning has many challenges and many blessings. Taking attendance is so, I'm sorry, it's written over something else. I can't read that.
Hard.
Hard, yes. I was surprised how quickly I could learn how to use Zoom. Me too. You were not the only one. More versatile, reach a larger audience, was very challenging in the beginning. Yes.
April likes the idea of eye breaks.
Eye breaks. Well, you can always look away if you want an eye break. Yeah. And so those are really a lot of the same things that we had. A few that we had were just having to learn new tech was lessons. Reach people from all regions, yes. And another one that we found out, somebody actually said it, they said you can reach more people. And so we've not really had a reason for travel because you can stay where you are. So I'm sure some agencies and some employers have probably appreciated that part of it. Accessibility of Wi-Fi and training on cell phones, which has already been said. And things don't, yes.
We have a question.
Okay.
Sherry wants to know, what is a Zoom bouncer? She says that's a new term for her.
A Zoom bouncer is somebody that is in the background kind of helping you out on Zoom. They can mute people. They can help you with PowerPoints. They can, what else do you guys do? They can read the chat. So obviously, you know that one of my Zoom bouncers is Miss Glenna because she is following my chat for me.
We can do breakout rooms.
And my other Zoom bouncer is Miss Julie, and she is doing breakout rooms. So it's somebody that really, it's kind of your co-pilot. And just recently, I think instead of co-pilot, it's become Zoom bouncer. But they can also mute you if, there's some noise in the background or sometimes the phone rings, you just don't realize that you're not on mute, those kind of things. So hopefully,
Also,
Sherry, I answered your question.
Lindsay says humans can always find innovative ways to connect with one another. We've come a long way from the styrofoam cups and string telephones.
That's very true. That's funny.
Thank goodness.
some of these I can't read. When we have been able to do face-to-face, there is a greater appreciation of it. Oh, yes, definitely. Hard to track. Engaged audiences are due to a dark, it's hard to track how engaged audiences are due to dark screens. Yes, definitely. Okay, all right. So we're going to move on from all the positive things that we've learned. And now we're going to talk about some challenges. So we're going to do the same thing in the asking. We're going to ask you the question and then have you annotate. What are some of the biggest challenges you have faced with the pandemic as far as training goes?
Bambi, do you have to go back and clear it?
Oh,
Yeah, either Bambi or Julie will have to clear
I
it.
got it.
oh, it's cleared. Cool.
Thank
Thank you.
In Zoom, you have, in chat, you have Zoom has worked well, but I miss live humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having the connection and the relationship with people in the same room, being able to hug people that you know, actually just being able to be 6 feet close to them. Okay, so we've got, it is more difficult to be interactive. Teachers needing to get all of their training via web-based trainings. Yes. Painful when no one participates. Yes. Multiple people on devices at my house. Yes, that can be a problem. Even having large numbers on a Zoom call can sometimes have Wi-Fi issues. So we have on other calls that I've been on, I have had to ask people to turn off their cameras just in order to keep everybody on. Difficult to go over handouts and cover certain topics when not together. Yes. The interactions in personal relationships.
Internet connection.
Yes, big challenge. We've dealt with that as well. Some people have a lot going on at home when they are trying to concentrate and pay attention. Yes, not able to build connections as well. Crickets is down here in the corner. I hear you. I'm not a cricket person. If there is crickets, then I'm just going to keep talking. So difficult to present live demonstrations, no hands-on. I can't read the rest of that. I'm sorry, guys. Hands-on activities. Okay. Keeping it interesting.
It's running around.
Kids running around, dogs barking. Goats on the porch. I'm just saying.
You're in my
Staff
lane.
needing to complete training on a phone. I feel like I am talking at people. Yes. Sometimes you feel like you're talking to yourself. So just for a minute, let's talk about some of the challenges. I think some of the lessons learned were probably fixed on their own. Everybody was able to figure those out. So can somebody tell me, and it's okay if you want to unmute yourself for this. Somebody said it was difficult to go over handouts and cover certain topics when not together. Did anybody find a fix for that, or would they like advice on how to do that? You've got all your training coaches here, so this is a great opportunity to look at some of these challenges.
I did just finally realize that you can actually attach a handout in Zoom as a PDF, which for all, we try to send it ahead of time, but they don't necessarily print it or have it. So at least now if they're on their phone, that's still difficult, but if they're on a laptop, they can at least usually open it and access it.
Perfect. And that's what I was going to say. You can always drop it in the chat box.
In chat, Kara scanned information and sent it to them.
Okay. Yes. And Andrea said that as well. And it is true. Sometimes you don't always get them to print it out, but maybe at least if they have a copy, they can open it in an electronic version while you're there. Let's see.
I use a lot of screen sharing too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can show them what you're talking about. Absolutely. At least they know what it looks like. So somebody said it is more difficult to be interactive. What are some interactive techniques that you guys have used? We may be able to give some as well.
Games, icebreakers like you just did. I use a lot of hand motions. I'll bring up pictures and just anything.
Okay, yeah.
Videos and embed videos, share your screen with videos and stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. And we use Annotate. We've used Jamboard before to be interactive. Zoom polling, poll everywhere. Those are some of the ways to keep people interested, interactive. What else have we done? We've done a Jeopardy game. Trading coaches, what am I missing? Help me out here. What else have we done?
Within the PowerPoint, leaving some of those blanks so your participant has to fill in the information.
Yep.
In chat, you're getting PowerPoints and videos, breakout rooms, poll questions.
Oh yeah, breakout rooms. I just assumed that everybody had probably done breakout rooms by now. We do them so much that yeah, it's become a way of life, I think. And I personally like breakout rooms because it gets people into a smaller level. If everybody's looking at what you're putting in chat, you may not want to be that many people reading that, but at least in a small room, you get the opportunity to talk to a smaller group. You may feel more comfortable. Okay, great. Okay. All right. So here's a question for you, and we're going to do this one. Oh, did we clear it out? Thank you. Okay, so if you had a magic wand and could transform professional development for early childhood educators, what would that look like to you? I see lots of people thinking.
Can I just talk instead of type?
You sure can, Angela. Go for it.
One of the things that we struggle with at one of our centers is we don't have a lot of technology. And so we don't have a training room. We don't have a smart board here. We don't have the tools. And that's where I find we have a lot of staff who don't have internet or don't have a computer at home or trying to do things on their phones, which I think is not the best level of training. And so I wish some of this money that is coming from the state, and I know we could use it, we're just using ours for staff and for money, but I wish there was more thought into how do we help centers provide a good area for professional development that is really going to enhance teachers getting professional development if it needs to be web-based and they don't have a printer at home and a computer at home or internet in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm. And probably in some cases, not even a laptop to use. Most of them are
They
probably
don't.
using their,
They're using their
phones.
phone. They're doing, these long trainings on their phone, which I just don't know how much they're really getting out of it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
In chat, you've got lots of fun. You've got each person would have their own computer and access to reliable internet during this time of training.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the question is, how do we get the laptop and the technology into our participants' hands? And everything that we're talking about today, we are making notes of so that maybe as training coaches, we can help with some of these issues that we're seeing, or, help transform training into something even better than it is right now, especially with everything going to online.
So with Angela's concerns with like lack of technology and lack of resources, are there other parts of the state who have had any successes in tackling that? So that's clearly a statewide need. That's not just like a pocket. It's across the state.
Well, this is Sherry. Hi, Christine. Nice to see you.
Hello.
I have had some child care centers, which is what I was getting ready to type in, who supported their staff in various trainings so that they didn't have to use their phone, even if they got them an iPad to borrow from the classroom or lent them a computer for various things. What I have discovered, and for me, it's gone across the country, not just locally in Kentucky. But we were having like programs where they were all trying to sit around in one big room, and that doesn't lend itself well to poll questions, breakout rooms, small group activities, because they're still in a large space. So we've really encouraged folks to be on their individual pieces of technology so that they can actually participate as a person instead of as a large group. And I think that's what someone else was referring to here a second ago.
Okay, thank you.
And B, Connie said if she had a magic wand, she would have participants that understand and appreciate the value of training beyond just getting hours.
Hallelujah.
Yep, we are right there with you, Connie. Now,
I
if we
think
could,
also if we could do, if I had a magic wand, that we would do some more scenario-based, like scenario-based cards and training. I think a lot of the time we give the training, but they don't know how to utilize it once they get back. So if we could do like more scenario type cards and put them in situations, especially when you're dealing with challenging behaviors or special needs or something along those lines. Giving them opportunities to practice it in a training before they take it out into the real world, because what it looks like on paper and then actually doing it, it's two different things. So if we had more scenario-based trainings, I've added those to a lot of the trainings we do here. And the participants seem to really like it and understand it. And they're able to have a tool now in their toolbox when they go back.
Excellent. Yeah. So what you're referring to is a lot of transfer of learning activities. Not only do they do it in the training room with you or the training session per se, but they also take it back, and that they've got something that they are able to look at and remember and know how to do in the classroom. Absolutely. And that is something that we push in our FET and our PACEs. So yeah, that's very important. Anybody else? No.
This is training coach Julie, but I would love to see more courses that are implementing, that don't stop at the training outcome, but that actually have a part 2. We're doing it for strengthening families coming up here, but where the part 2, you actually show evidence of the workplace outcome and do some assignments over the month or 2 after the training as a part 2 for credit, because giving people knowledge is great, but if they don't implement it, what's the point? So
Nice.
Some of that part 2 work, whether it's built into the cost of part 1 and it's a free part 2 just to get people to sign up and commit to the work, I think that would be a great benefit, to have more work on the implementation, not just getting to the training outcome, but the work outcome, the workplace outcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. Anybody else? Well, I think we were supposed to do that as an annotate, but you know what? You guys did a great job of speaking that we don't need to worry about what training transform would look like. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a breakout room, but we're going to break out regionally, which means you'll be with your regional training coach. So as you guys registered, we were able to figure out which region you're in. And so we've kind of broken you up into that way. And then we're going to, while we're in there, we're going to have some discussion questions, and you can kind of take a look at those. It's introduce yourself. What was the biggest impact of COVID on your training business or your job? Who supports you when you need to think through these issues related to training? And what do you see as the biggest area of need in training in your part of the state? And how could we meet those needs? And then what additional supports are needed? So each one of you, your training coach, will be with you, and we'll look at these, and you'll have 20 minutes, and feel free to share everything that you share with us. You know, is confidential. All we're doing is kind of figuring out what training needs to look like, where we need to go, and how we can help you out, and what each region looks like, to see if there are multiple needs across the state that we can kind of address as a group. Okay. To talk about some of these issues and find out some of the things that are going on regionally. There's our discussion questions. Okay, so do we have somebody from each group, or the training coach can do it? That's okay with me, to give us some of the highlights that we talked about, maybe some of the greatest impacts that people felt, or something that you felt was really important that you all discussed.
I forgot to ask my group for a speaker. We got so involved in
I did too. Don't feel bad.
But if any of my participants in my room would like to speak, they are more than welcome to.
I also didn't ask for a volunteer.
I don't want to point Bob out.
Glenna, we were supposed to ask for volunteers, so.
Glenna was taking great notes, and was a wonderful host. So I know
You got Bob, Glenna? I'm very jealous.
You should be.
I am jealous.
Well, for the western part of the state, like the lakes and the two rivers, part of the discussion we had was that there's still a lack of trainings that are even available to centers. And it's not that there's a lack of trainers, just a lack of trainers who are actually doing the trainings. So they're trying to also partner more with the early childhood councils and some other community partners to kind of help increase the availability and the discussion out there about getting more trainings on the calendar.
Okay.
Tammy Chapman volunteered Dawn to speak for their group.
Yeah, I was gonna say I volunteer because I forgot to, I guess, volunteer anybody to do it for me. So
Thank you, Bethany, for sharing.
we had some pretty good discussions, but one thing that we did talk a bit about was, it was kind of mentioned before, but really getting the trainees taking trainings because they need the trainings and they want to attend the trainings, not just because they were, told to take it, or although sometimes that actually worked out better because the director knows what they need to take, but not always, and making sure, like right age groups are attending the right trainings. One person suggested doing more trainings with directors and providers on the professional development plans and using those to create training, or to sign up for training, to sign up for trainings, because sometimes what's happening is directors are just filling them out for their staff members, or they're not connecting, a professional development plan with professional development, even though it's in the name, but they're not necessarily connecting those two together. And then we also talked a lot about just the need in our region, at least, I don't know if it's across the board, but just they're getting lots of requests for trainings on diversity and inclusion, and not always feeling necessarily comfortable or able to offer those trainings, not having that background and that expertise in it.
That's a good one. Yeah.
In my group, we had a lot of discussion about the impact of COVID. And we got a lot of support from our peers. That was an answer. And from our organizations we worked with or worked for. So that's a positive thing. And we talked about the need for self-care and the trainings that are available for, to help people realize they need it, first of all, and then how to, what to do. And we made a list of things we wish we had, supports, I guess, needed. Some we could take care of, and others are beyond our control. So, but we discussed it.
Excellent. So let's see who's left. I'm left, and Julie, did you go?
I have not gone.
Okay.
We just talked a lot about kind of the resource that the coaches can be for support. Like, we can come in and be a Zoom bouncer the first time you offer a workshop. We can help you figure out how to transition into using technology. We can consult on any number of things and help you as you kind of work through the transition into all this virtual stuff, and unfortunately maybe back into some of this virtual stuff again. I think that was most of it. I was in and out a little bit at the beginning, figuring out the time on the Zoom rooms. The other thing is to give yourself grace with technology, because things will always happen, and you give it to everyone else, give it to yourself, and don't be too hard on yourself when it doesn't go exactly as planned.
Okay, I think I'm the only one left. So we had a pretty good discussion too. Somebody said that the biggest impact that they felt was not having enough face-to-face trainings, and that due to that, the biggest impact was that there were fewer participants that participated, that was getting the information when they would, they're used to having 50 people face-to-face, but they may have half that or a third of that for the Zoom trainings. Somebody also talked about Zoom fatigue, that it was hard when all of your meetings and your trainings and keeping in touch with people, even during the pandemic, is all on Zoom. So by the time, it comes around that there's awesome training, you just don't feel like doing it because you're tired of being on Zoom for 6 or 8 hours a day. Let's see. So, and in our group too, they also said that the people that they talked to with some of these issues were with their colleagues, that they would get together and figure out creative ways to do things, and other credential trainers to be able to come up with new techniques. And they also did staff surveys and resources, and that they did look at some of the things that the HDI and the Child Care Aware had done for trainings. Talked about some trainings that they've heard about that's needed in our area, which ended up being on the creative curriculum, ASQ and Brigance, the ITERS, ECHRS, now that All Stars is coming back into play, screeners, cultural dual language training, and behavioral training and trauma-informed care. So that's kind of, is there anything else that any group wants to add that wasn't said? I feel like there's a need or a support.
Julie.
One other thing, sorry.
Go ahead, Bethany.
Okay, one other thing that we have an out-of-state trainer. So in Tennessee, she was actually able to send like a survey or a needs assessment out to a wide range of centers to get feedback on some of those center-specific needs. And we also kind of touched briefly upon the fact that it's harder to do that type of thing in Kentucky because there's not really that type of connection. So really figuring out a better way to get communication of what do the centers truly need to help try to make sure we're actually offering trainings then based on their needs, not just for credit hours.
Okay, it's a good point.
Julie added in chat that they also talked about providing help with the business side of training.
Okay. Yep. Sorry, I'm taking notes here. I know somebody else is probably doing that too. Yeah, so all those are great. It sounds like that there are very different regional needs across the state. So hopefully these conversations are going to open that up for the training coaches and our leadership to be able to hopefully help out with some of those needs and supports that are needed. Does anybody else want to add anything? Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Are there any topics you would like to see for future trainer connections?
And speaking of future training connections, our next one will be, and they are always, what is it, the third Tuesday, will be Tuesday, September 21st at 2. And that topic is still to be determined because we are going to take a look at some of these conversations that we had today to see if we can come up with something that will benefit all the trainers that we coach to. And hopefully we can come up with something good for you guys, unless you guys have a topic that you'd like to share with us that you would like to see. You guys are a quiet bunch in the main room.
Yeah, we really appreciate the conversations and the ideas. This is kind of like beginning of the school year and just kind of brainstorming about different topics that we can explore together. And that could include anything from trainer connections to new beyond fundamentals or, any topics that you're really wanting to know more about or really need additional supports on. So whether it's been in the chat or in a breakout, or you're welcome to send an email to any of the training coaches or myself if you have like a good topic that hits you, or if you see a webinar on something else and you're like, oh, that would be good for the credentialed trainers kind of thing. So we definitely want to be bringing new and relevant topics to you, but we need to hear from you to make sure that we're hitting the mark.
Anything anybody else has to add before we say goodbye?
Lindsay said, thank you, coaches, for always being there for us all. It takes a village.
Oh, that was sweet. Thank you, Lindsay.
And Connie said, doing great as far as I'm concerned. A lot of thank yous.
Well, thank you. Okay, well, I think it is. Well, it's 2:58, so maybe we can get by with closing down 2 minutes early. What do you think, Christine?
You're good.
Since it's not for credit,
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so
all right.
any of you all feel free to reach out to your regional training coach if you think of something else that you'd like to discuss or need or support in your area. We're here for you, so we'll be glad to hear from you. And thank you for being here today.